Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an episode of Career Mode. We're back with some more goodness, and we have the World Cup qualifiers. Now, only the first part here is the World Cup qualifiers, then we get back into the league. You know, we finished out the transfer window. I did upload a really late night episode of Career Mode yesterday. I think I uploaded at like 1 a.m. or something like that. So if you haven't already seen that, then go ahead and check that out. It's a really good game. There's some good games in there, and if you guys don't know, well, last episode we did actually win 1-0 over Uruguay, which is a huge win for Colombia. It was from a Falcao goal really early on, and it paid off just throughout the entire game. We went on to win 1-0. But in this game, you know, things just seemed much easier. We went 3-0 up pretty quickly, and that was relatively quickly made 4-0. I'm really happy with that, and that's a really solid victory for the team. Colombia overall are a really solid side. I mean, you can just take a look at the bench. They have some great players: Sanchez, Ibarbo, Muriel as well, all to come on. I mean, that is such a solid bench there. Personally, I'd play Muriel over the likes of Martinez, but on the game when it simulates these sort of things to predict an outcome, it always tends to look at the highest rated players on the team. So if I were you guys, and you're simulating games and things, I would always tend to put your highest rated players on the pitch. As much as I don't necessarily like doing that when I play the games, but when simulating, that is the best way to go about things. But sorting out the team here, as you can see, you know, this team, I haven't been so excited about a team for a little while now. People are referring to me as the Arsene Wenger of football right now, because I've just bought so many young players, and that is really quite true. I mean, you just take a look at the bench there. There are some quality players, and I'm so excited to see how they all develop. One of the things that I've got to make sure, though, is that injuries stay to a minimum, because obviously players won't grow, players won't reach their potential if they're getting injured, you know, once a season or something like that. So that's something I really have to keep in mind, because if I come out of this, you know, with like 3 or 4 injuries, things like that, especially on the really young players, I don't mind it so much on the players that are, you know, coming up to the 30s or something like that. But, you know, if Oxlade-Chamberlain got injured, or Zaha, or just anyone like that, or IB, anyone like that, that could just be a real kick in the balls, because they're players that I'm really relying on growing. And obviously, if they grow in rating, that also means they're worth more to the club, and that's really why we've picked a lot of them up. But Manchester City making all the chances happen early on, and to be honest with you, I was quite nervous. A really strange throw out there from my keeper. I kind of messed that one up, but a great through ball there from Sturridge all the way to Aubameyang. Aubameyang manages to hold on to the ball. I was actually impressed he still managed to hold on to it. Sturridge there, eat my sack. That was just insane. He just bullied off about 3 Manchester City players and fired that into the near post. I mean, near post, we all know what that's like in FIFA, but it was still a really impressive goal. The fact that he managed to get that little boost of pace, which he seems to have every time I play with him. You know, if players are muscling onto him, he just seems to find this extra gear, and his acceleration is magnificent. One thing that I kind of don't like about the partnership between Aubameyang and Sturridge is that they both can often find themselves sitting really deep. You know, it almost feels as though they have a high defensive work rate. I'm not entirely sure if they do or don't, but it feels as though they don't want to stay at the top of the pitch. I mean, sometimes, you know, they'll do the right thing, like there Aubameyang was sort of hovering around the top end, but a lot of times, you know, they will drop deep. They'll drop deep to that halfway line and try and pick up the ball, very much Wayne Rooney-esque. And although that's not exactly the way I like to play FIFA, it can work out sometimes if they do manage to get onto the ball. But my keeper makes a wonder save there. He sticks a leg out and he just does the job. I'm really happy with that. Great to see that he's you know, made a cracking save like that. But the ball was played through. Unfortunately, it was offside on Sturridge. I did think that it was a really good run, and I can kind of see I left it just that little bit too late. But Aubameyang there gets past one defender, and this time Sturridge was onside, takes it onto his left foot, and that is going to happen 9 out of 10 times. That was a cracking sort of finish, and a really good ball from Aubameyang as well, because Aubameyang isn't that great at making those sort of plays or making those sort of passes happen too often. So when he does hit a really nice one, it often ends up in a goal. But that was it. Full time, 2-0 over Manchester City. The team are playing magnificently well. Sorry. We also managed to beat Real Madrid, which was a huge win for us. You know, beating Real Madrid like that in the Copa Europe was just so awesome. As you guys can see, though, Coates there not very happy with his current sort of role in the Liverpool squad. He isn't getting played that often, but that's only because I have 2 amazing centre-backs at the moment. That is Ogbonna and Agger, so I have no real need for him to hop in there. But if there are any sort of injuries coming up soon, I'm sure he will be straight in there. But here are the groups for the Champions League. I thought I'd, you know, sort of introduce you guys to the groups of them all. Real Madrid and PSG and Galatasaray all in one group. That is going to be a really tough group. Also, also Barcelona, Spurs, and FC20 there. Dortmund, Lazio, Rubin Kazan, Feyenoord, a really hard group there. But this is our group here, Benfica, Schalke, and Celtic as well. I definitely think we can definitely get in the top two. I know that Benfica and Schalke are going to be a really tough, two tough opponents. I remember playing Benfica, was it last? Yeah, I think it was last season. I played Benfica in the Europa League, but now they're obviously with me in this Champions League. So I'm excited to see what happens, see if we can get ourselves progressing through to, you know, the last, I believe it's 16 or 32, and hopefully the quarterfinals. My aim is really the quarterfinals. I definitely think it's possible, and it would just be amazing if we got to the quarterfinals. But some of the league objectives are actually really quite harsh. You know, I've just made it into the top 4, and the board are already wanting me to go on and win the league. And if I want to win the league, I pretty much have to beat most teams, and I can't throw away the silly points to teams like West Ham and things like that. And there was a cracking strike. I honestly thought that might have just dipped in. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and we have to move on with it. But I was 1-0 up, and looking pretty good. You know, the team was actually playing very well. A great ball to Chamberlain there as he finishes that on his left foot, and that was actually a really nice piece of play. It started off on the top half of the pitch there, and it kind of made its diagonal way down, and another great shot there with his right foot from Aubameyang. That's two really nice shots that just haven't found the back of the net, but at least we're getting some chances, we're finding space, and that's what's important. 2-0 away from home, really happy with it, but Schalke, it didn't take long for them to get a goal back through a really nice header. I don't really know if I could have done too much to sort that out, but there was a player just laying on the ground back there, really worried about that, hoping it wasn't going to be a big injury. Keeper makes a really good save, but Huntelaar there, he is always in the right place at the right time, and fair play to him for that, because that was really impressive. The fact that he's I don't want to call him a poacher, because he isn't really a poacher, but he's just always in the right place at the right time to bang them in the back of the net. And unfortunately, my keeper, I feel as though he could have done a better job and held on to that. And that's one of the things about having, you know, not an outstanding keeper, but a great piece of chest control there from my attacker. Unfortunately, again, it doesn't go into the net, but we are creating some fantastic chances. Ogbonna there with a great header to beat the keeper. That was a fantastic header. A good cross as well. Credit to the person who took the cross. But for some weird reason, in career mode right now, a lot of the times they will default it so my centre backs take the cross. I'm not entirely sure what the whole deal is with that. Coutinho there broke free and was actually one-on-one with the keeper, and he didn't manage to finish it there. And in all honesty, I was a little bit disappointed with that. You know, if you're one-on-one with the keeper, I'd expect you, especially if you're playing for Liverpool, I'd expect you to be able to finish that. And Coutinho admittedly isn't the best at that sort of thing, but what an amazing goal from Huntelaar there. He literally turns his body, and it was just the strangest angle of a goal I've ever seen. It was a fantastic effort. Unfortunately, we couldn't get one in the last few minutes, and it ended up being 3-3. Aubameyang there with an 8.5 rating. That's the best in the team, but for me, man of the match was definitely Huntelaar. He scored some really nice goals and really kept Schalke in it. But that'll do it for me, guys. Unfortunately, we do have 2 injuries, and it's both are for 3 weeks. I believe it is Agar, and the other one is Mvia. So we're going to have to swap the team around and sort that out. But I hope you guys all have a cracking day. And like I said, if you missed the last episode of Career Mode, I uploaded it late last night. So go ahead and check that out on my channel. Until then, guys, I'll see you all in a little bit. Bye-bye.